Microsoft had their fall Surface event today and they unveiled some new products. We're going to take a look at those today. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, illustrators, designers, people who like to stay home with their cats instead of going to your picnic. Jeff? Right, products. Let's cover the little stuff first. First up, Microsoft showed off the Surface Laptop 3, their ultra portable laptops. They've added a second size to go with the 13-inch version they've always had. There is now a 15-inch version. There's some nice design refinements, larger screen, bigger trackpad, that sort of thing. He did pull off the keyboard cover to promote how easy they are to repair and replace components inside the computer, which is a nice touch. They also added fast charging. Next up are the Microsoft earbuds, which are just wireless headphones that work with Office. Next up, we saw improvements to the Surface Pro 7. Now, I wasn't paying too much attention to the leaks that have come out in the last week or two that have revealed a lot of the products that Microsoft was going to cover at this press conference, so I was a little surprised only to see some incremental upgrades to the Surface here. They did take out the mini DisplayPort and replace that with a USB-C connector, added some fast charging and some little upgrades here and there. It's also going to be available pretty soon, October 22nd, starting at $749. What I didn't see coming is what they unveiled next was the Surface Pro X. This is one of the big unveils that they had here. This is a real next-gen Surface Pro product. It is super crazy thin. It's also running an ARM chip now, which is the Microsoft SQ1 chipset, which is Snapdragon DNA. These are the kind of processors that usually you see in phones and tablets and not in full Windows computers. You also get your two USB-C connectors. You get a wider screen, thinner bezels, has a 2880 resolution by 1920 resolution. That means it's keeping that 3:2 aspect ratio that I like, at least for drawing and illustration. Not everybody's a fan, but I am. Inside the keyboard cover, when you pull it out, they have storage for the pen. I thought that was really, really cool. Makes so much sense to stick it there. Love that. In the slides, they mentioned there is a new Surface Pen. Here's to hoping that is better than what we currently have. We haven't seen a really good update in several years. And it's going to be available on November 5th, starting at $999. The one thing that I should point out here with all Surface products, you're really going to want that keyboard cover as well. You're probably going to want a pen. So the real starting price for most people is probably going to be around $1250. They showed off a lot of cool stuff here, like new pen integration that they're working on. For example, you can go into an Excel spreadsheet and erase things with the pen. You could just write in your number and it's going to appear in the cell. So it's nice to see them still pushing forward with this pen tech that they've been working on for the last couple years. Now, when it comes to that ARM chip, they talk about it. Hold on, I have to actually read this because it's kind of techno mumbo jumbo to me. They say it has 3 times more performance per watt than the Surface Pro 6. What I want to know is, how does that translate to real life? That sounds very specific. Power per watt. Does that mean it's actually 3 times faster than the Surface Pro 6? I kind of highly doubt that, so I'm really curious to just see how this compares to the Surface Pro 7, get them side by side, and see what the performance is really like. The writing's been on the wall in terms of seeing some of these ARM chips starting to get put into laptops. I thought Apple was going to beat them there, so it's been interesting to see Microsoft kind of beat them to the punch this week. Next, they had Adobe Scott Belsky come onto the stage, and they actually did a demo of Adobe Fresco. I'm actually saving that for the end of the video, so if you want to check that out. I think Fresco and the new Photoshop are a big deal. I think it's an even bigger deal that it's not just on the iPad, that they're bringing Fresco to Windows. They didn't give a firm date, but they said soon, and I was surprised to see it working so well and so far along in their demo. The next announcement they had was the Surface Neo. I am a sucker for new hardware and just seeing new innovative form factors. This is definitely that. It looks like a book. It's a little a shame that they already used the term Surface Book on another product earlier, but Surface Neo works. There's a little magnetic keyboard. You can like slap it on the back when you're not using it. When you open up the book, you can actually put it on one of the screens and it turns into more of a laptop-y form factor. This is good because when I first saw it, I mean, typing on a glass keyboard, like a screen-based keyboard, it's okay if you're just typing out a message or something, but if you're working all day, you want a clickety-clack keyboard. You want to be able to actually feel those keys under your fingers. A little magnetic keyboard that you can move around is kind of an interesting compromise here. Now, one thing to note, this will not be out this year. They're working to launch it next year, holiday time next year. They said that they wanted to get it out early to get it in developers' hands so they can start working on apps for this new device, which makes a ton of sense because if you release it now, developers aren't ready for it. It's just going to look like a gimmick if there's no software to support the new hardware. Another thing to keep in mind is the Microsoft Surface line in general, starting with that original Surface Pro was created by Microsoft, yes, to make them more money, obviously. But the second part of that was looking at Microsoft's business model is Apple was able to control the hardware and the software, which means that they were able to push further, push faster because they controlled both of those things. Part of the reason Microsoft started this hardware division was to do just that. Microsoft could make the coolest software in the world if they wanted to, but if the hardware manufacturers weren't doing creative things to take advantage of what they were doing, that it was hard to push the industry forward. That's where the Surface products come in. And when I look at a product like this, it perfectly fits into that. So I think part of what the Surface Neo is doing is, yes, creating a computer that Microsoft is hoping to sell a lot of, but I also think that they're suggesting to vendors and saying, hey, we're working on this other technology here. Our software is going to support it, so this is stuff that you can start building hardware to match. Right here, I have a little bit of dirt on it, but this is the Asus ZenBook Duo. I think I'm saying that right. I'm in the process of reviewing it. I'm still about a week and a half out on that particular review, but this thing has 2 screens in it. And when I was looking at what they were doing with Neo, it looked a lot like what Asus has been doing with this laptop that I'm reviewing now. The way you can switch between screens and try different things and get navigation down there is some really cool stuff you could do when adding a second screen. I thought it was going to be gimmicky, but I'm liking this computer way more than I thought I would. So I'm really optimistic about this new form factor they're working on. When they were showing the Neo, I kept thinking, wow, that thing is cell phone thin. And when they were like folding it in and out, I thought, that reminds me a lot of some of the like Android phones we've seen with the foldable screens over the last couple months. So I shouldn't have been surprised, even though I was, when Microsoft unveiled a smaller version of the Neo called the Surface Duo, which is basically a phone with the same form factor as the Neo. So this is what I wrote in my notes when they first unveiled it. I said, well, what a smart way to get into the phone industry. Take full Windows and make it run well on a smaller device. Kind of like what Samsung DeX is doing, but in reverse. Your phone is the only computer that you need. And as I was writing that, they then said, oh, this is an Android phone. Nothing against Android. I just thought, oh, I wouldn't say they missed an opportunity, but I think for me, it would have been a far more interesting play if they had kept Windows on the phone. I should also point out that Microsoft and Samsung are working pretty hard together. In fact, at the Samsung event, they had Microsoft on stage talking about some of the stuff they were doing for DeX. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is like a variation of DeX that Microsoft is working on the Android platform. There's a lot of questions here. Also, like the Neo, the Duo isn't due out until the next holiday season. My second thought on that was that I live in Ohio, and what everybody does as soon as they get a new phone is they encase it in plastic so it never breaks because the things are so precious. Whenever I see a new form factor like this, my first thought is like, how are you going to put a case on that? Like, looks cool, but how are we going to protect it? How are people going to use it in a real world? Especially if you're pushing it in a business setting, those people are looking for function over form. Anyway, I have no idea how people are going to act. I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. But before I go, we got to talk about Fresco for a minute. So Adobe was there, they were showing off Fresco, and I read the comments. I know not everybody is a fan of Adobe's subscription model. In fact, I know people hate Adobe's subscription model, but we also have to accept the fact that Adobe is the industry standard, especially in a business environment. Even Microsoft said on stage that 50% of Surface Book owners are running some kind of Adobe software. Now, I'm assuming that means Creative Cloud, and that doesn't mean like a PDF reader or Flash or something like that. So I'm assuming that that's what they're talking about there. A lot of people use Adobe. They might not be passionate about it like Procreate users are or Affinity users are, but there's a lot of people using it. I did not expect the Windows version of Fresco to be anywhere near as complete as what they were showing on the stage. They said it's coming soon. Hopefully that means before the year is out. I think on Windows, Fresco is a game changer. One of the things about using, any kind of Windows tablet with a pen, with a touch screen, it's just not a smooth user experience. Fresco really is a user experience, and I think Adobe rethinking their apps with touch in mind make a ton of sense. In fact, hopefully later this year, we're going to see Adobe Photoshop being released. I know it's coming to the iPad first, But I also am under the impression that, like Fresco, they're also going to be releasing it on other platforms like Windows, probably in the months or years following. So we will see. What do you think? Are you looking forward to any of this hardware? What would you like to see me review? Definitely going to be checking out the Surface Pro 7 and definitely going to be checking out the X. Is there anything else? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of days.